to fight on the landing ground.
Thank you for joining us. You are listening to A Radio, and this is the Morning Moment. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. I want to play a piece from Fox News. This piece concerns US-Canada trade negotiations. The point I want to make here is that it seems that it's being deliberately ignored by the mainstream media and others that Canada's position is really very, very weak. Canada is propping up a failed collective trading agreement that basically favours Canada over the US. A couple of simple examples. Milk costs 3 times the amount in Canada that it does in the US, and cars cost approximately 40% more, excluding the exchange rate. That means that a car that is manufactured in Canada and being sold in the US is 40% cheaper than the same car that is being sold in Canada. And Canadians are barred, for the most part, from purchasing these vehicles easily in the US due to fake emission and safety standards when they try and import them. You look up importing cars from the US and see what a rigmarole it is. But they are the same car. There are limits on the borders from bringing in quantities of milk and other dairy products from the US, and the list goes on and on. Not to mention the highest cost for cell phones and the usage of them in the Western world. Many goods are banned from Canada because they don't contain French on them. Here's the piece. Links on my site.
Willing to go ahead with a new Nafta deal without the Canadians on board. Mexico. Why, or what do you make of the president's tough stance with regard to Canada? Willing to go ahead with a new Nafta deal without the Canadians on board. Mexico only, one of our oldest friends and allies, the Canadians. The president's being tough on them. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I think he's fulfilling his pledge. He said, I'm going to take care of the American worker. And so if you look at the Mexican negotiation, that's what comes out of that. And I think the American people are seeing more broadly, there's nothing near free trade in any of this, right? The ultimate goal, the White House has said, Larry Kudlow said, is to get to no tariffs and free trade. Right. But when you look at the negotiation with Mexico, you see we're negotiating sector by sector, part by part by part, wage rate in each sector, wage rate for each part. I mean, there's no free trade to any of it. And so the best part of this is the American people are seeing, and then the lobbyists and the special interests, of course, have powerful moneyed interests up there to get their way. If you're big up there, you can lobby to have your piece of the trade deal negotiated your way. That's why we want free market, so you don't have that political corruption buying off certain sectors, et cetera. So we're moving in the right direction, but it's tough.
You brought up the American worker, which I do want to speak of, because there's been some debate about the quote-unquote American worker here over the last couple of days. The president's gotten involved in that. But one more specific question on Canada. The latest numbers I believe that we have come 2016 showing the U.S. with a $12.5 billion surplus with the Canadians. And the president cites this trade deficit. Whatever you make of it, there's back and forth on whether that's the best measure or not. But the president's used it a number of times, and not really an issue with Canada. So, again, why go so hard after them?
Well, I think it's just the disparities across the board that we're talking about. We want to have fair rules across the board so we don't have to continuously be renegotiating all these sector-by-sector deals. And when it comes to the American worker, I mean, what's been left off, the mainstream media doesn't capture, right? We grew at 4.2 GDP growth last quarter, and the Atlanta Fed has us at 4.6. And so what's the result there for the kitchen table, folks? My Democrat opponent wants to get rid of all the tax cuts and put in place tax increases to support, ending Medicare as you know it. Walmart shoppers, 100 million retail shoppers at Walmart broke retail records last week, right? That's unbelievable evidence that we are taking care of the American worker. The Democrats spin it because they got nothing else to do, right? They go negative on you because the overwhelming objective news is all good. Every consumer sentiment, business capital investments through the roof, GDP growth through the roof, African American, Asian.
Sure. You can find more at aradio.wordpress.com, where you can find links to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Gab, and email. You can now find us on Spotify. Just go to the podcast section and type Canadian Politics with a Twist and you'll find us. We are continuing to reach out to you, so please pass on the links. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. You can listen to all my morning moments at Spreaker.com under A Radio, that's EHRADIO, A Radio. And please click on the like button. And you can find all my podcasts and morning moments at aradio.wordpress.com and click on the Morning Moments tab.